Hello, and we just lost Preston's camera. I don't know where he just went.
We
I
can
think
hear
we
you.
can hear you, but I'll try to get your camera back. Hello, and welcome back to the RMNA 2024 preseason podcast. I'm Steven, joined by Preston and Shuar. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Today, we're going to be discussing all the juicy details. Your favorite teams, favorite matches, your predictions for this next coming year, some strategy. Preston, I know that you've been talking about some potential strategy for teams to follow. I know you've been talking about like your advice about the century and how they should operate. So it's gonna be great.
Yeah, I'm about to check it as well.
Can y'all hear Preston's audio?
My audio is there.
Sure, I think we can hear you, but Preston, can we not hear you? All right, you can. You can. I'll keep trying to figure you out. Shawar, Shawar, what are you looking forward to?
um, Man, what am I looking forward to this year in competition? I'm looking forward to just like the way that teams have progressed since the last 2 years. Having competed in the last like 2 3 years and been a captain of a different team, I've seen a lot of like ways that the teams have moved forward and have like pushed robots like the ultimate brink of their abilities. And I'm excited to see how like crazy this year is going to be. Last year's top eight, for example, was one of the closest top eights we'd had seen in like a long time. And this year, like you just gotta like, expect the bar to be raised even higher, right? I'm super excited to see what people bring this year.
I agree. I mean, there's so many good teams this year that I feel like at this point, if you're not going to be 100% every single match, you're not going undefeated this year.
Yeah, I
There's
agree.
no way that teams are going undefeated this year. I don't think.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot less like games where it's like neither hero moves or the Sanders are just not shooting at each other and someone accidentally bumps into something. Right? I feel like a lot more of them are gonna be close matches that really demonstrate not only the engineering of these teams but some strategy as well. I feel like strategies are going to evolve this year. We're going to be able to like pinpoint exact ideas people have come up with after reading the rules and coming up with like their own unique spins on like methodology. For example, last year a big strategy we saw was take the hero right behind the base and just chunk at its health over and over again,
Yeah, that
right?
VT strategy.
That BT strategy, then versus like a UW strategy, which is just place your sentry in the middle, and if anyone goes anywhere, they get hit
You
by
just
that
die.
sentry, and it's over
Just
for them.
get
Yeah.
immediately delete
So
it.
I'm excited to see like the variation in strategies this year. I feel like we're going to see a good amount of them based on just how many teams are going to be like actually functional, right?
Mm. Okay,
Have we got
Preston,
Preston online? Can we
try
hear
I
him?
talking
don't
now.
think
Thank you.
so. Oh, we do. We do have me online. There we go. Yep, all good.
We
Great
Yeah,
can
job,
let's
hear
Steven.
him.
go.
Perfect. Give me just 1 second. So teams are
Oh
you
man,
specifically looking forward to seeing?
I am. I. So we were talking a little bit offline right before this started, just about the sheer number of teams that are going to be competitive this year. I'm excited to see it come down to strategy, driving, outplays. I think that's going to be the decider within the top five teams,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is wild. That has not been the case for all of RMNA history. Um, yeah, so that's what I'm most excited for. And then what was the second part of your question? Which teams?
I mean,
Oh,
yeah, just in general. But I mean, we can wait if you don't want to answer
okay.
that right now. I
Okay.
know that we will probably talk about that a little bit later on.
Yeah, we'll get into it in detail. I am excited to see some of these newer teams. Like I'm looking at a list right now and I see like University of Wisconsin Madison, I think is brand new. And they passed their final exam. That's exciting. We got Ontario Tech, who I don't think have competed in 3v3 before. I recognize the name. I'm wondering if they competed in 1v1 last year. But
like a
Yeah.
combo team way back in 2021.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I was like, my brain remembers talking about Ontario Tech, but I couldn't remember. Simon Fraser. We got a bunch. We got a bunch of new teams coming in this year, and that's great. I think we'll have kind of a duopoly where we have one segment that has that just full 3v3 robots, incredible performance, and we'll still have a place. RMNA still has a relatively low bar of entry, which has been something that I've really appreciated about RMNA. Getting into RMUC is so difficult. It's so expensive. It's so hard. The teams are also good. It's so well established. Our region is still young enough and small enough that you can start up a team and you can probably have a great fun time at competition this year in 1v1s and next year in 3v3. So
Yeah, I gotta second everything Preston said. I'm excited to see all these new teams, and I really think that we're gonna see a lot of just fun matches overall, and everyone's gonna have a ton of fun.
I agree. Well, speaking of fun matches, let's talk a little bit about last year because I know there were a lot of really close matches last year that I know it was kind of like we said it was like, the best RMNA ever. We say that every year. But I really do think that last year was one of the most competitive seasons that we've had. And particularly, I'm thinking of like even just group stage matches like CU versus VT. I think they were like actually the first match or one of the first matches that we had, and it was just this banger of a match, just going back and forth. They split it 1-1, and it was just crazy.
yeah, that was a great game. That was a great series. We saw that crazy Virginia Tech strat come out early. We saw the Sentry for Colorado like being aggressive, which was something that was pretty unique to their team last year. I'm hoping to see that spread a little bit and see some variety in the Sentry performance. But yeah, 2023 was a banger of a year. I want to highlight University of Texas at Austin had several matches that were just enthralling. We were giving out awards for like our favorite match of the day, and they won it several times. So yeah, there were some really, really good matches last year.
Yeah, no, I agree. I kind of agree with the similar sentiment. UT Austin, VT, CU. I also really enjoyed like the knockout stage, NUS versus CU. I think NUS was a huge dark horse that kind of no one expected coming in completely out of nowhere, and everyone was like, this team went to second place, beating out TAMU, who had usually gotten that nice second place position and going all the way. It was an amazing just to watch them in general, and I think that match especially was a lot of fun. It was like a close one where they lose the first game and you're like, oh, it was kind of a wash. Like I didn't expect them to keep going from there, but then they came back against CU, and it was all pure like strategy and just knocking out that CU hero early and being able to make sure that the CU doesn't snowball them anymore. It was truly a sight to see and a really good match.
Yeah. And their Sentry was working pretty well too, right? We've talked, I think, already this year in the podcast again about how it was like shooting at people's pants and stuff, but it was firing at the correct colors, and that was really great to see. NUS definitely a highlight. And then something I really appreciated last year, some of the teams were getting real involved in just like the social aspect of the competition. It goes on for so long, it's almost like a convention. That was really, really fun. I know there were groups going out to dinner and stuff together. There was, for certain matches, the crowd would actually get quite large. University of Washington had some groups come in. That was one of the highlights for me. They had some of, I think, high school students that came in and watched some of those matches. We got to explain what the heck RoboMasters was, and it's always a joy to see like new people discover RoboMasters and be like, oh wait, like this is wild. This is what you see on like movies and animes about like what you do with engineering degrees in college, and their team's actually doing it. So.
I agree. There's just so much to talk about, but we've got a lot to talk about outside of last year. This year, notably, there's been a lot of changes. Not as drastic as maybe say the Sentry going from the rail to a ground robot. No big changes like that this year, but we've had some really big changes with how the game just functions in general, specifically with regard to like the leveling system. For those of you who don't know, in past years, the way the levels worked, you would level up from level 1 to level 3, and your robot would get, standardly better stats as the game went on. You would get faster firing rate, faster cooling values, more health, more power available to your robot to draw upon. This year, there are 10 levels. 10 levels. And I'm just still trying to wrap my head around that because I know Preston, you and I, and Shwar as well, you've seen some like the RMUC matches, and we've seen this like you've got one team with a robot here over at level 2, you've got another team with a robot over here at like level 7, and it's just crazy. These guys, it's like I don't know if we yet fully understood like how that will play out in the smaller RMUL, but I'm excited to see it. Oh, I don't know about y'all, but I think it's going to provide a whole new dynamic for how like teams strategize.
Yeah, so I want to point out two big things while we dive into the leveling system. Number one, one of the big changes I expect to see is I think the more granular levels will slow down the snowballs. So previously, the difference between level 2 and level 3 was massive, right? So if you had a slight advantage going into the mid game and your standard in particular hit level 3 first, you probably won the game. Now, if you have the same advantage in terms of kills, in terms of like kill participation, time, firing, there's lots of things now they're going to play into XP. But if you have the same game state, I think you'll have like a level 9 to a level 7, and the difference will be much smaller in robot capability.
Mm-hmm.
So that's thing number one. I think it will slow down that. It'll kind of put the game state back in the hands of the pilots and say, hey, there's still a chance for an outplay here. Whereas back in the day, you really couldn't outplay a level 3 standard. If you weren't also level 3, you were toast. Yeah. The second thing that I want to say about the XP system, we've already seen it. If you're watching the standard Prez RMUC streams, I know we've seen it both days where a robot has leveled up during a fight, and that has kind of turned the fight because they get some health, they get a little bit added, right? I mean, it's just like most video games. If you get really into League of Legends, you'll start engaging right when you know the level 2 minion's gonna fall. That way you get level 2 on the engage, and like it becomes part of your strategy. And you might say, yeah, but you could already do that in the old system. Yes, but you only leveled up twice. So the chances of that happening during a fight were so low.
And it was now harder to level up because now you level up or you gain XP just for shooting.
Which you're doing during the fight, right? And so with 10 levels, there's such a big percent like chance that this is going to happen. And if you are a pilot, you can start to plan on it. Be like, oh, I'm level like 7.9. Like I'm so close.
Right.
Let's just go engage. I'm going to level up on them in game.
Well, that'd be such a cool strat. You see like level down, you think that you're like about to get an easy kill, then surprise, I leveled up.
Boom.
It's gonna be crazy. Well, and
I do want to sorry, not to interrupt, but I did want to say actually one thing, because a big thing about me is I love calculating. I love doing stats work when it comes to like EXP.
Give us the numbers.
And I did a lot of this at the beginning of this year. So one of the interesting things that I saw was that another big thing is that leveling brackets have changed quite a substantial amount. Like, so for example, back when it was the old system, right, you would require like 120 XP to level up, which like from level 2 to level 3, which was generally a lot faster to accomplish, especially early on in a match. Like you would see people would be at their max level if they were snowballing, like within like a minute or two, right? However, now your level up experience, even from just level 1 to level 2, is already 250, which is more than the previous going from level 2 to level 3. I think that that's going to also be like a way to like negate those kind of snowballing camps. While you get more experience overall, because again, you're just firing, you get experience, right? The like curve, the scale seems a lot less like an exponential shoot up with your stats and truly like a linear gradual increase, which I think will be really interesting to see as well. Like you mentioned, that level advantage doesn't matter nearly as much anymore until it's like significant differences, right? And also, I think another big thing about that is that there's a lot more ways to gain XP now. Like we mentioned, like already shooting is one thing, right? But also getting the center buff point and centering and like actually focusing it has become way more important now, in my opinion, as well. Like it's no longer like, oh, you get a free health pack, right? And like you just place your sentry there to like basically cut off angles. No one really would go for it as much previously in RMUL. I feel like it's become a lot more important now because you get that steady increase to your level gains, and you need to be able to get as much level as possible on the enemy. I feel like it plays a lot more like an actual video game, like a MOBA. Like League of Legends, for example, or even like in my Dota's where I'm from. I know Dota stuff, and Dota feels more like that as well. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting system that they've kind of like they've just flattened the curve a little bit, so you're not going as crazy with your experience. You get your 2 levels in, and you just win the game, kind of thing. But yeah.
You've actually given the perfect segue because, in addition to the level changes, there's also been some slight map changes, and you mentioned one of them. That central buff point now no longer gives you blood bags, but it grants you XP. And so I want both of your opinions. How do you think that? I know Shawar, you kind of just touched on it, but how do you think this will affect teams prioritizing map position? Timing their retreats back. I mean, we already talked about it. You mentioned it earlier, the UW strategy where they took their sentry and just parked it right in the center.
Yeah, so I do think and I hope that we're going to see some sentry positioning based on the importance of the center, whether it's driving your sentry to the center or having your sentry drive to the side of one of those barriers, right? So that way it can view into the middle. I think that'll be very impactful. Obviously, occupying that center space is going to be really beneficial. I think the teams that do very well will start to plan now and beforehand. Center control versus ammo conservation, backing. So the map is tiny. I understand, right? But when we're talking about MOBAs and no one's complained yet out of all the things that people don't like about my commentary. No one's complained about it yet. But if you're feeling like, man, stop talking about video games, this robotics competition is a robotics competition during the school year, and then in the summer it's an esport. You've built these dope robots which give you actual advantages in game, and now you get to play the video game. Backing used to not matter at all. You could back whenever you want. There was no timing. There was none of that. You went back when you were out of ammunition or you were almost dead. The only important thing was you didn't die. It's like Iron League of Legends. You take a bad MOBA player and they just go back when they're about to die. Now you're going to think about, okay, I want to make sure that when I back, I have enough gold to get a significant amount of projectiles so that I can maintain center control for longer. Because now the duration of center control matters. Being able to have longevity as like outside of your base becomes much more important. We're not going to see successful teams firing and fighting from their resupply zone like we have in the past.
Yeah, I agree definitely. And I think with the way that the healing dynamic has worked too, you're going to see because I think part of the reason why, backing was so irregular was because you had those blood bags that you had to worry about, that health pool that you were always taking from. And so maybe, it was like some teams was like, oh, I don't want to go back because then it's like I'm going to take a blood bag and I might need that later in the match. But now it's like, hey, just go back to your repair zone, your resupply zone, and heal up a little bit and then get back in the fight. But now you got to time it correctly, because as soon as you back, you got to think, oh man, the other team's going to push now, or they're going to take the center with their sentry. And so I think it's going to be playing a role. And speaking of that resupply zone, the other big change is that it's twice as large. You can now fit 2 robots in the resupply zone. Yeah. And I know that we talked about this a couple times, or Preston, maybe you mentioned it a couple times on stream, was that you had to wait in line kind of for your buddy to finish healing up. And if the enemy just came around, you're just a sitting duck right there trying to get into the resupply zone to heal up. And, well, too late.
I do think another thing that's kind of like positioning is going to be really important, like Preston mentioned. I think positioning yourself in the resupply zone is also going to be really important, because there's still ways and configurations that you could accidentally block your teammate from getting in there. Because while it is big enough for 2 robots, you got to still maneuver yourself in that way, right? Yeah. And I think that's going to be really interesting for also to see how teams will like I think a big thing about this year is that positioning has become infinitely more important. Like you're mentioning, Preston, like you could kind of just take pot shots from the side and then just go back whenever you want. I feel like teams that are successful will be teams that have positioned themselves in key moments of the game in order to take control of those, like the central buff point, and try and stop their opposing team from going back and healing and getting all of their econ going. Another thing about the resupply zone that I really like a change, and I'm interested to see how this plays out, is that this was a subtle change, and they didn't really advertise this, but the actual econ has changed a little bit. You're no longer buying rounds at 50 rounds for 50 coins for standard. You're buying them at 10 for 10. And while the overall monetary value hasn't changed, clicking that button 5 times instead of 1 time and being able to micromanage your econ that much more, I feel is going to also be incredibly important, right? If you're like, I only need 30 rounds right now, I don't need more than that, right? That's 20 extra gold you have currently for a later fight or if you need to come back and buy more, right? And that's like another
Right.
thing about like MOBAs, like in League of Legends, right? Like knowing when to buy, when to back for buying,
Yep.
etc. And keeping that like econ flowing is very important in my opinion. I'm interested to see how teams will do that calculation and come into like with that strategy alongside their positioning strategy for the resupply zone.
And vice versa, right? So the example you gave was, if you only need 30, right, you will be able to kind of min max but you'll also be able to spend more of your gold, right? If you have 80 gold, you can spend it all.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, right, you'd be able to buy 50 and maybe you can't spend the rest there. So
yeah. And you just kind of have to sit with 30 now in your hands, right? Now you can granularly spend all your gold, which I think is incredibly interesting.
Yeah, when you decide to back, you can kind of maximize that.
Maybe some heroes get some ammo early on.
Yeah, I think we will, honestly. I think because especially it's 15 for 1 round, I believe now for heroes, which I think is significantly more of an investment. Because like what you got 5 rounds before, and it's 2-round shots to still kill standards, right? So I think it's like honestly just always putting 2 rounds into your hero and spending the rest into your standard for that beginning play is totally worth it. And that's an interesting way that you can go about it, in my opinion. I'm interested to see how that goes, especially for heroes that have good CV or can knock out standards fast, even with like Beyblading. I think it'll be interesting to see for sure.
And now I want to talk about the firing velocity. It's constant across the board. So, maybe before it's like you were hesitant to take some of those shots because it's like, it's not going to fire as fast. I'm going to have to kind of lob it over at them. Now it's like, oh no, I can hit you from across the map now, no problem. So
yeah.
I mean, we've already talked about it. I know that there's been like conversations in the big RMNA Discord about how, our armor panels are our shells are cracking, our decorative shells and our covers for all our electronics, and we gotta try to protect our MCMs from these 30 meter per second, 17 millimeter projectiles, and it's gonna be crazy. You're gonna have some just projectiles just flying across the map at level 1.
Yeah, I think 2 quick things. One, I think is the biggest change for the hero. Standards previously, when they have low projectile velocity, you can easily adjust. You're just streaming projectiles, and so you're like, oh, okay, I need to aim a little higher, right? Hero, like you're saying, not only is every shot expensive, but you could only fire, especially at level 1, once every, I think, 3 to 4 seconds because of barrel heat. And so you didn't have a chance where that robot you're fighting is still in the same position to adjust. Whereas with the standard, it's a full auto. You're just got the thing pressed and you're going up and down so that you can get some shots.
Yeah.
So I think it will benefit the hero the most. The second thing that I want to point out is that this is back to my very first point of the level system. I think this is another way that the RoboMasters game designers have allowed robots of different levels to be more competitive. So previously, robots of more advanced levels just outranged you. There's nothing you can do about that. Like you have to walk up, you're going to get poke damaged first, and then you're going to be at a health disadvantage and a level disadvantage, even if it's an even numbers fight. But now you can fire the same distance as your opponent at all times. And so even if you're down in levels, it comes a lot down more to skill expression and accuracy and robot, like the mechanical robot design. So I'm hyped. I think they're great changes. No downsides.
I absolutely. I think another thing that's really important to me, at least, is the simplification of the you pick your I guess your spec. I guess is the best way to put it. You know how you pick your like launching mechanism, like burst focus versus projectile speed focus, etc. Right? And like simplifying that, because now projectile speed obviously is unanimous across the board. Because I know one strategy that you could implement, and this was something that I calculated last year, is that if you pick projectile speed focus, no longer live. I think
no longer live.
Technology.
Man, I thought you had some fantastic points today. You're on fire right
This
now.
is the part that I'm good at.
I love it.
What I do for my team every year is I sit down and I just calculate everything. And I'm like, here's like the amount of projectiles you can expect to fire in a match. Here's how much damage you can do if you land all your shots, if you miss half of them, so on and so forth. I just run a bunch of calculations, simulations, and I'm like, here are the specs you should pick at the beginning of the game. These are going to give you the most amount of value. Build for these specs. Clean my hands and I let it go and I go code now.
Heck yeah.
It's like
I love it.
I'm really into. I love this kind of stuff. This is what I love about strategizing in esports. This is why I love fighting games. I'm just looking at frame data all the time and going like, oh, I can win.
Yeah. We are back live. It ended the last
Sorry
one and started a new broadcast.
Amazing. Hello, everyone. Are we there though, or is this
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Steven's not in the call? I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know,
Let's find out.
but no, we're definitely live, and I can see all three of us. Steven is typing things quickly.
Yeah.
No,
we
Steven,
cannot.
I don't think we can hear you, bud.
Check.
Can you hear us? Are we
Test,
still here?
test. 1, 2,
Oh
3.
yeah, we got you. Everyone's
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
We're all good.
Hello, everyone.
I can't hear you for some reason. Could you join the
Oh,
room
Steven,
again?
we can't hear you live anymore. We can only hear you on like the 2-second delay if you're watching the Twitch stream.
Because you're
if
not.
that's what you were asking.
I don't think you're in
Yeah,
the Video Ninja anymore, Steven.
Yeah, I think you're using your webcam in Discord.
Yeah.
But maybe we just abandon Steven while he fixes producer stuff, and you and I keep the
Go
show
on without.
moving.
Yeah.
Let's chat next about
The health mechanism has changed entirely.
Sure.
I think that's another like important thing, especially because we're talking about the resupply zone anyways. You no longer have health packs. You're now regenning health in certain areas instead. I think that's an amazing change. I thought health packs were kind of annoying and they were very snowbally because you only start with 2 anyways.
Yep.
Right? And then if you don't get that central buff point, which no one ever really would go for it because it's like a death zone there anyways, and you run out of your health packs, GG's, there's nothing you can do to come back now. Right? Like you're always starting off at 10% health and you revive. You get snowballed really quickly, and the enemy team will just keep killing you in your resupply zone. However, with the ability to now regen in your resupply zone, I think it's an amazing change. I had asked for this change last year, so I felt happy that they did it because I was like, oh yes, even the game designers agree with me on this one.
Well, and that's from what I remember when I competed in RMUC. That's how it was. When you went back to your resupply zone, it was also a repair zone, and you just started regenning health.
It was just RMUL that still had the health pack system.
Okay, so overall, I think there's been a lot of great discussion. I hope a lot of the teams will listen to this little podcast at least and start thinking about what they should be changing and optimizing. Overall, do you think time to kill is going to be longer or shorter than last year? Kind of take a second, look at all the considerations. Faster projectiles, probably more accuracy, no blood bags, but yes, regens. Do you think, more granular levels? You think, what do you think? More kills, less kills, and time to kill shorter or longer?
I think more kills and time to kill, I think, will be similar. Because my theory here is that kill time was always pretty quick in RMUL because once a standard at like level 3 kind of got to you and just unloaded its all its projectiles onto your armor plate, you were dead. There wasn't really much you could do, especially if you weren't the hero. You don't have that extra health to work with. And I think that given now that your health increases much slower, I think we'll see teams die a lot more. But I think that invulnerability period and the ability to regen in your actual like base means that you're coming back to fights with full health. And so overall, I think the time to kill doesn't change very much. I think that maybe it's a tiny bit faster, but I don't think it's going to matter much because no one was really popping because you couldn't pop a recovery bag anyways mid-fight. You had to come back to your respawn zone to use it. So I think that the actual fight itself, you have the same amount of health pool generally. Things are doing the same amount of damage. You're going to see the same time to kill. But I think you'll be able to enter fights with more health, which might make team fights a lot more impactful. Like having a 2v1 is going to matter a lot more in that case because you have double the health to work with, and both of you can regen after you win. Right, because the other team is not going to come and attack you now, right? They're going to be scared. It's 2 versus 1 now.
Yeah.
So
I think teams are going to. I think it's going to be on a team by team basis. Mm-hmm. I either think your team is going to have like a what's a kind way to say it? I think either your team is going to overcommit to pretty much every fight.
Yeah.
And you're going to enter and you're going to be like cage match mode, and one of you is going to die.
Yep.
If that is the case, I think time to kill is slightly shorter. I think the projectile speed is going to help everyone be more accurate. I think we're going to see more hero shots on robots.
That's true as well.
And that's such a large amount of damage that I think time to kill will drop. However, if you are, I think we also might see games with extremely low kill counts.
Yes.
Because I think the robots will always be closer in every fight.
Yeah.
And what I've been seeing in RMUC streams is a lot of robots getting away with like less than a quarter health
they just
left.
Barely get away, and they just run away right then and there. I agree.
Exactly.
I think a part of this is also optimizing how much ammo you have. Like I was mentioning with the econ, like because that extra 10 gold, do you spend it and maybe confirm the kill, or do you run out at 40 bullets instead of 50? and now you're like, oh, what do I do? I have no more projectiles. I can't, end this now, right? It's like running out of your util in Valorant, in my opinion. It's like you need to like make sure you buy just enough for that like particular fight, and no more, no less, so you have enough for the next one, right? But yeah.
Steven, give us your thoughts. Time to kill, you would think shorter or longer?
That's a tough one. I'm gonna go with shorter, but for not quite the reason that y'all have listed. I mean, great technical points, and I do think those will definitely play a role. But I think because this is now the fourth RMNA, teams have had a lot more experience driving. They're practicing more. We've talked to it. The teams have spent more time practicing with their pilots, the ones with the robots that are ready and operational. They've practiced with their pilots more, and I think you're going to see more experienced pilots coming to the competition and showing up and have just better accuracy in general. Because I'm sure that the first time that both of you touched the controller and tried to drive one of those robots, it was a learning nightmare. I know that maybe y'all were prodigies on the sticks, but I know for me, it's like the first time I tried to drive the Tamu standard around, I was just trying to figure out which way is forward, back, turn on the flywheels. I mean, there was so much going on that it was enough for me to just move the robot. But now I think if you're going to have pilots that have been practicing with these robots that have been to competition before, they're going to know what to expect, and they're going to have that experience under the belt. And so you're going to see probably a lot more teams illustrating some team strats, some accuracy that we didn't have in years past.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. There's a word for it in statistics. I don't remember what it is, like a learning bias or something, where if you perform the same task a couple times, it'll look like you got better at it because you just practiced doing that thing. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I think that's a super valid reason to think that the time to kill might have dropped.
Yeah, I think it's actually very insightful, Steven. I agree. I think that's a big point I didn't even consider. I was like, oh yeah, everyone's like done this now. Like everyone has at least driven matches before with like their keyboard and mouse, right? And so I think that I think overall we'll see shorter time to kill probably. I'm more excited to see how teams will take like this level advantage fights now, and just how that will end up working out like in the long term, right? Like for example, like if you have a level 6, level 4, is that worth taking? Like, do you think you can 1v1 there? Possibly even 2v1 with a level 6 versus 2 level 4s. That's another thing I'm going to be interested to see at the match specifically.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything that changed this year, if I'm not mistaken. At least for the competition mechanisms in terms of like EXP, health, and econ. So do we want to move into maybe some of the bracket
I was going to ask you, do you want to talk about the changes to like the format first, or do y'all want to do predictions first?
Format. Let's get format out of the way. Let's end with predictions.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. I will take the stage then here, because this is a little bit of my passion project here on this bracket changes. I'm excited to announce these, etc.
Tell us what's happening. Yeah, so
first thing, obviously, is the 3v3 group stage format, which has received minimal changes overall, but some interesting ones that I think will really matter and be impactful. So this graphic that Steven just put up, perfect graphic for me, if we can get that back up.
I'll put it back up in a second, sorry.
There are now 8 seeds we're going with instead of 4 seeds. So last year we seeded 4 teams based on their performance the year before. So 1 through 4, pretty simple. This year we're seeding everyone who made it to the knockout stage last year. In this seeding, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 seeds will be in group A, B, C, and D. It doesn't really matter where they go because they're just in different pool, like they're different groups regardless. And then 5, 6, and 7, 8 will all random roll to get into one of those brackets. Again, separated from each other. The match quality had improved substantially, and we believe that at least we can predict at least 8 of those teams to be strong contenders for possibly taking it into the top 4, taking it into the top 8, taking it into that knockout stage. And so we wanted to kind of reward that performance, and also try and provide some more interesting matches at the lower level, because newer teams, you don't want to get put into a group with everyone who got to the top 4 last year and be it by yourself and be like, I never had a chance, right? So this kind of lends itself to more upsets and keep some of those stronger contenders away from each other, so that if they do meet, they meet in later stages of bracket where more audience is there, more interesting matches can then occur, and we don't see number 1 and number 2 knocking each other out just in the group stage by itself. But yeah, so that's one of the major changes for 3v3. The 1v1 format, however, has seen the most significant amount of changes because there's too many people now. Congratulations, we're finally at a mass of 1v1 teams that we need to actually like make some changes on how the bracket works. The group round robin was going to be like 72 matches over like 3 days. And I don't know if you guys have ever tried to run 72 matches on one field over 3 days. It's not going to work very well. It's going to be very unpretty. In order to lessen this, we basically went with the Swiss format instead. Swiss is a format tried in chess. It's a very tried format. It's very good for this particular methodology where it's like you don't have enough for a round robin, but you have a lot of teams that you want to play in like a short amount of matches. It also guarantees everyone gets 5 matches. The basic way that it works is you can see on the structure here, and I've just put 5 teams here just as like a general indication. You have Team A, Team B, Team C, Team D, and Team E. These are seeded, so Team A is the number 1 seed, Team B 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth, right? Team A and Team B will play, Team C and TD will play, and Team E, the last seed, will get a bye in this case, because if you don't have an even amount of people, one team obviously needs to have a bye. You pair them up and you call that your first draw. In the first draw, everyone will play. In this case, we said Team A will beat Team B and Team C will beat Team D. Just cause, let's just say that, right? They get 2-0, so both of those teams will earn 3 points based on the scoring calculator in the rules. And Team E with a bye will also get 3 points because they had a bye, so we're just going to count them as like a winning team. From there, we put you guys into scoring groups, so the 3-point group and the 0-point group in this case. Then we make another draw based on those scoring groups. In this case, Team A and Team E will be drawn together because they're both in that 3-point group. Team C doesn't have a pair in the 3-point group outside of that, so we're going to pair them with either B or D, and then one of B or D will get that bye. And this continues for how many ever draws we want to get as much amount of points as we can get for everyone. And at the end of those 5 stages, whoever has the most amount of points, we rank them from 1 through 8, and those 8 teams will go in. Breaking ties based on your cumulative score overall. We released a document that goes over all these changes, and I'm more than willing to also answer questions if you guys go into the RMNA Discord and just ping me at SHAURK. But yeah, that's the basic general changes to the format. In general, try and make a really fair and fun competition for everyone.
All right, so let's say
Went
there's
ahead and
someone
threw
at
up
home
that group seating for
definitely
you, so
at
you can see
home
that as well.
who is like, man, but how the heck does this work? Let's talk 3v3 real quick. How many people from each group are getting out of groups and into knockout?
Yeah. So we have 4 total groups and 8 teams that we need to select out of the group stage. So 2 teams per group will get out to the knockout stage. And there are 5 teams per group. So it's gonna be a bloodbath a little bit there.
That's a little tough.
Yeah,
that's a little tough.
Bloodbath. There's a lot of teams.
Yeah.
Here's the bracket that you can
Interesting.
see
I have
now.
mixed feelings. I think it's good. But let me explain. I think it's good because it's less luck based.
Yeah.
Your grouping is. I think it's a much more even grouping. Last year we saw some teams, not going to name names, but get into groups where I'm like, oh, you would have had to be like 2 out of the top 3 teams to make it out of groups. That makes sense. And that's really rough.
Yeah.
I can see that now this year, no one will be in like a group of Titans, which is good. But at the same time, everyone has to beat a very established team to make it out of groups.
Yeah.
And so no one will get like that soft group, which is good. Because like it's good for everyone.
Preston, you just want to throw them to the fire.
If you're watching this and you're one of the newer teams and you're like, yeah, but is there any chance I even make it out of groups now? Maybe. You might. There are robot technical issues every year. Don't ever say that you can't win one. But also, it's good because now you will get the matches that make you look good, right? You don't want to make it out of groups if you only have one functional robot, because now you'll be that team in the knockout stage where we get to you and we're like, okay, best of 3 now, but it's a known, right? Like you're just gonna get stomped. Come on, this is rough. It's good. I like the bracket move. I'm just saying, if only 2 teams are making it out of each group, you're gonna have to land a big kind of underdog punch to get out of your group.
Part of the idea here is also we're kind of hoping that big underdog punch gets landed, right? Because it's with another thing about the commentary aspect to this, right, is that now that we've seeded these 8 teams, we've kind of put 8 targets on people's backs, right? And it's like if any one of the other teams beats one of those 8, it's like that was unprecedented. right? Like, we didn't expect that to happen. It's awesome. Congratulations. Welcome to the knockout stage. You're the underdog. And as we saw last year with NUS, right? That can be very powerful. Like, everyone was cheering on NUS in that second match right before they got into the top two. And it was a crazy electric feeling across the entire field. It was beautiful. And we're hoping to try and replicate that storyline again, right? Based on how the performance was from last year. And so that's what I'm kind of hoping for, is that, like, some of you underdog teams, some of the newer ones who didn't necessarily do too well last year, come back with some cool robots and not take some of these eight teams down a peg, right? Like, they're not that much better than you. I promise. You can do it. We've gotten such a variety of teams into RMNA now, and such strong teams as well, that I'm really hoping that everyone's quality overall has increased, and we can see some crazy strategies come out.
Yeah. And I agree wholeheartedly with both of your points. I mean, I think that...
And I guess I'll really quickly talk about this last little thing here on the screen, the top 8 double elimination we're doing. But yeah, so in this case, top 8 double elimination, it's true double elimination this time. So that means once you're in this knockout stage, you're not going to get randomly thrown into a match you've done before, or thrown into a match that you don't have 2 lives in for no reason. Everyone gets 2 lives essentially to work through. You lose one match, you go to loser's bracket, and you can still come all the way through that and win the grand finals twice, and you win the whole tournament. There's no aspect of oh, I got knocked out by one match because there was just no more to play. We cut this match 13, 13 gets cut for some reason. Very strange, right? But yeah, so we're hoping that all these different changes to the bracket really improve the quality of matches and improve the tournament experience for everyone, giving everyone a ton of matches to play, because you're all paying money to be there. You're all taking time off to be there. We want to give you as many matches to play, even if you're not necessarily a fully on par team to get to the knockout stage, and still get to enjoy the whole tournament across both 1v1 and 3v3. That's what we were prioritizing. Is your guys' fun? But yeah.
And this change...
Can you all hear me now, Ian, by the way?
Yes,
My
we
mic
can.
working?
Welcome back,
Wonderful.
Steve.
This change I have,
and I agree with
only
both of your
wonderful
points. I
things
mean,
to
I think
say.
that this year, with the new format changes and the quality of team that is coming, we're going to have, maybe cliche, but the best and greatest, most exciting RMNA once again. I mean, is anyone surprised at that point? But it's going to be great. And Shawar, thank you so much, by the way, for all your work on these format structure changes. Everyone, if y'all see Shawar at competition, tell him thank you, and give him a pat on the back, give him a handshake, or punch him if you got seated incorrectly and you have something to gripe about that with. But
talking about my back, I guess. If you get seated into the number 1 team, the number 5 team, I apologize. That was not my fault. Just roll better next time. That was your own fault. You random drew that. I didn't do anything about that.
Of course. Shawar's over there just manipulating the hat. He's like, all right, I'm going to pick and choose who goes where. He's stirring the pot. Nah. Thank you so much, Shawar, for all your hard work on that. I know that we appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to seeing all the different matchups that we're going to get, especially with the Swift stage in 1v1, me being the 1v1 guy. I mean, I get to commentate that, so it's going to be cool. I'm going to see all these teams, these underdogs, these new teams fighting and clawing at these established, veterans, and it's going to be great.
I'm excited, somewhat excited for 1v1, because scheduling-wise, I'm not that excited. I have to redraw the bracket each time. That's my job, by the way. So if I'm at RMNA, by the way, and you guys see me, and I'm looking a little stressed, I'm a little angry, and I snap at you and go, please, can you go to your match now, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. Just forgive me ahead of time, please, guys.
Thank you, Shar. You're doing great. We'll just have to make sure you get lunch. I know Natalie said when she was on that she didn't get lunch last year. So as long as that doesn't happen, as long as you get fed, we're good.
We're happy. Yeah. I'm happy as long as I get fed.
Well, I mean, I think now we can move on to some predictions. Some awesome predictions. Let me go ahead and try to pull that up. But what are, just overall, what is your feel? I know, Preston, that you've said you think that just the gap between the top teams, the middle teams, and the bottom teams, everything's just shrunk. Shawar, I want to know what your opinion is, just overall. Nothing specific yet, but overall.
Overall, I think that this year is going to be a lot more volatile than the last couple of years, and not because we're going to see robot malfunction, but because we're going to see some crazy strategy plays. Like I said, I think that robot quality across the board has increased, and I think that you hit a threshold at some point where it's the engineering quality is not going to make the difference anymore. It's your driver strategy. It's your ability to play the game. And with all the changes we talked about, in the AXP system, the health system, the different kinds of like econ that you're going to have to work with. I think that all of these things have combined to make this a lot more about the actual esport alongside the engineering, and not just like engineering diff in every situation, right? And so I personally think that top 8 is going to be a lot harder to predict this year, which is kind of why I'm excited to see like how it goes down. I do have some ideas for top 4 though. I think I could solidly say that at least the top 3 to 4 teams we have.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I'm gonna pull up this tier list because I am a
Tier listing. Yes.
yes, I am a technology, well, not technology, I actually know my technology pretty well, but when it comes to running these streams, I'm still a newbie, so the only thing that I know how to do is to do a tier list. And so I'm gonna pull this up and I'm gonna try to hide as much as I can and then make this fit to the screen. Okay. And let me pull this up now over here. Bear with me just 1 second.
Preston, are you confident in any top 3, top 4? What do you say is like your? I could guess these top, and I would put money on it.
Oh no, I don't think I could
Really?
put money on. I don't think I could put money on 2.
Can y'all see the
top
tier
2.
list?
Yeah,
Tier
yeah,
list
we
up.
see the tier list.
All right, cool.
Are you
Let me
doing
just
a-
crop
are you
this
doing
down
a
so that way
display
it's not
capture?
hiding all of our beautiful faces.
I think we're
Steven,
fixing it now.
If you're doing a display capture,
fixing
you
it
can
now.
hold
There we
down
go.
Alt.
All right.
And
Tier list
Okay.
ready to go. It's gonna partially hide our faces,
oh, there we go.
There we
You
go,
cropped it.
perfect.
You cropped it nice.
Yeah.
but this is the best I can do.
Can I
Try
get
to
my face back in the screen?
Sure, you can duck down. Preston and I, we can peek over.
Nah, man,
It's so scary, but
Oh.
it'll work.
too many RMNA
All right.
commentating.
Preston, I want you to start us
thrive with
off.
my face
Who
hidden.
is your champion?
I think UW takes it down again. I think if I was a betting man, if I had to put money on it, I think I put UW up top.
UW, your champion. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And then who are your top 3?
Okay. So you're
So
saying like
UW's
the
there.
next 3.
Well,
next
you don't have to go to bottom. Well, we can do that. So who's gonna be your top 4 then? I guess. Who's
Yeah,
or
yeah,
your
yeah.
champion and then your next 3. I'll change that to be next 3.
Yeah, so 2, 3, 4. And this is where I'm really interested to see what Shar says because I lose all confidence once we hit number 2. So I like that you've split it up where I'm not building a bracket. I prefer the tier list style because now 2,
Yeah.
3, and 4 are still interchangeable.
Yes, I agree.
Still not easy. I mean,
not
goodness
easy.
gracious. When you look at,
I
if
know,
you
it's
go
hard.
to the RoboMasters Discord, like the NA Discord, if you look at the final assessment scores, I was peeking at those in the announcements. Nagoya, like, gapped everyone
Yeah.
on their final exam.
So this is actually part of what I was gonna say is that I think Nagoya is my personal like. I think they're gonna get second or third, and it's gonna shock everyone. This
Is that
my
your dark
personal-
horse pick?
That's my dark horse pick. I think.
Come on,
no
you're
one
going
else
out of
can
order,
see-
Shuar. Hold it.
I
Oh,
know,
We're talking
okay,
Preston right
wait.
now.
Sorry.
That's
All
a
right, 2, 3,
2,
4.
3,
2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Preston's 2, 3, 4. I'll try to go quick, otherwise this is gonna take forever. 2, 3, 4. Give me Texas A&M 4. I know you're not gonna put them like, but you might put them. You might move the icons in order, but
I'll
I think
move it,
Texas
yeah.
A&M 4. I think they actually slide back a little bit, focusing on China. Give me a. I mean, CU Boulder failed their 3v3. I know they're trying to fix it. So that's but they've done great. Give me a NUS. Give me a Singapore in 2, 3, 4. And I get one more.
By the way, have y'all seen
Goodness.
Singapore's new logo? It is sick. They renamed to
I have
Calendar.
not.
No.
Oh,
take a
see, that's a winning team logo. I just want to say, putting it out there.
It's gonna be sick.
Okay, and then for number 3, let me go Nagoya for number 3.
Nagoya.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I have their logo here. Let me grab their logo really quick. Sorry, my bad.
That's the
While
problem.
you grab
That's the
their
problem.
logo, I'm gonna say I agree with Preston mostly, but I think I swap Tamu with CU personally. I think
CU is so unknown for me.
so. The thing about CU is that at least talking to them, it seems that the reason they failed the 3v3 is because remember how like the robots were stolen last year out of their car? They don't have enough motors to make all the robots functional, but
I
they do
understand.
exist. Yeah.
But you're a software guy, right? From your
Yeah.
team? Okay, so from the hardware guy's perspective, what I heard every year is that our software sucked because we couldn't give you the hardware early enough.
Yeah.
That's what I hear all the time. And
I
so
think
when you
that-
say what I'm thinking is what you're saying, that their robots got stolen. And so when you take a well-established team, part of the huge advantage that they have is not, oh, they reuse robots. No.
Yeah.
They start code development day one of the year.
Yeah.
And they have robots they can test code on, and they can. They didn't have that, and so
I do agree.
I don't know if they're going to come back stronger. They are hosting, which is nice, but who knows?
I think that the big thing that like lends me to their favor is that it's like I don't know. I have like a solid feel. I know a little bit of their code stack. I'm not gonna say much because I don't want to like tell everyone, right? And I'm like I think that they've got a lot of like little tricks up their sleeve that I've heard about and that I've seen in general. And I'm like I think that this is the team that I would put at like second or third, right? With NUS being third or fourth, and I think that Nagoya ends up in there as well in that top three.
You're kicking Tamu out of your top four.
We will get to your top four in a second. I need to get through Preston's tier list first.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. All right, Preston, who is your dark horse? I want to know who's your dark horse. By the way, I think I fixed it so we can see all of our faces now. So no sneaky Snyder.
Okay, well I'll try to look more presentable. My dark horse is Torino doing 3v3 this year? Or they still just
they
just
are
doing 1v1.
They are doing
Give me
3v3.
Torino as my dark horse.
Okay. Can I just say also I love Torino's logo. I think it is one of the most beautiful logos we have at RMNA.
And the reason I'm not gonna just 30 seconds of why. Torino, obviously really well known for the first like balancing standard in North America. The international competition, right? RMNA. I'm hoping that is indicative of them being willing to look at the rules and say, hey, there's this really cool advantage of this thing we can do over here, and then put time and effort and like go towards it. A lot of the more established teams are kind of scared to change the direction of the ship, right? Like I'd be surprised if we see. Well, I have a little bit of insider information in a couple directions, but I'd be surprised if like some of these teams show up and you're like, oh snap, double balancing standards. That's wild, right? Like things like that. And I don't think Torino has that. Hopefully not. So anywho, they're my dark horse. Let's see how it goes. It would be super cool. Okay. CU, I don't think deserves to be called a dark horse because they are like. They're not an outlandish pick, but I do think they also have a shot to bust into that top four. Like I was talking about with Char, there's too much unknown until that robot reveal, and even once the robot reveal's there, I don't know. As long as their hardware team did a good job of communicating, because once their software was good last year, they had one of the better Sentry operations, and so if their team was willing to say, hey, when you're building hardware this year, you kind of need to keep this same general pattern of what motors are where and what your balance looks like. You can fast forward a lot of that software. Underdog. Someone convert that into boomer speak for me. What's the difference between an underdog and a dark horse?
So, okay, I'm making this distinction because your dark horse, I would say, is your long shot to win it all. Your underdog is your person that's going to show up and just turn heads because no one expects them to win, but they do win.
Dude, UT Austin. I think UT Austin did great last year. They lost a lot of their matches, but they were freaking close. And so put them in as the underdog. I think they're going to be scrappy. Like when I think underdog, I'm like, all right, they're going to come in. They're going to be winning games. They've got good strats. They've got dedicated team members. And were they the team that talked to me so much about reliability? I think they were this year. And so I'm hoping they come in and they just kind of real steel. You remember that old robot boxing movie?
Oh,
where like you just can't keep their robots down. And early on, you're like, oh, okay, they look like middle of the pack. But then as the matches progress and everyone else starts having issues, their little engine that could just keeps on chugging and they slowly climb the ranks. give me UT Austin as the underdog.
I like it. I think this is a pretty good tier list. I'm thinking you've got some, some veteran squads up in there with UW, Tamu, Torino, but you've also got some of the new blood in there. You got Nagoya, Nuss. I'm finally bringing people around to the Nuss hype train, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, man. I think after last year, you can't really ignore NUS.
All right, Shuar, I've been holding you back. I know you've been chomping at the bit. Give me your tier list. Who is your champion, first off?
All right. My champion, I still think this is a UW year. I think next year is a lot more in contention, but this year I think is still a UW year. Because I personally, it's really because Tim's on the team still, and I know Tim very well. And I'm like, he drives them like a horse. It's a UW year, I think. It's a good UW year.
Good
Hot take from Shar. It's the last UW year?
I think it's the last, definitely UW year. And that's just me personally. I think that the other teams have slowly caught up in ways that maybe UW, I don't think, is going as fast technologically as the other teams. I think that the more changes they make to these rule sets, the more strategy driven it is. You're going to end up seeing, it's going to end up becoming a matter of,
they're going to get outplayed, basically.
They're going to get outplayed at some point, yeah. And it's going to happen. And I feel that's next year for sure. Maybe this year, but UW is still champions in my mind. Now, the next three, I think this is my top 4 total, and I think this is going to surprise some people. Because I thought about this while you were talking, Preston. I started writing down. I was like, oh, there's actually one more team I want to put in here. So I think CU is number 2 or 3. Okay. I think that they've really they put a lot of engineering work. They have a lot of know-how, knowledge. They've been working a lot, and even with I feel like.
Dang it! No. Collapsed again.
Next, after that, I think we see NUS in 2 or 3 as well. I think CU and NUS will be competing for 2 and 3 essentially. That's going to be my personal take there, right? And then finally for 4, I think it's Virginia Tech. I think that Virginia Tech has just solid robots, and they'll bring them back, and they'll still do well. And I think that they have really good driver strategy as well. So that's something that's going to matter even more this year. So Virginia Tech still stays in top 4 as well. That's my personal take on those specific teams. Are we still live, by the way?
Yeah, we're good.
We should be live.
Cool.
Sorry about that. My internet's just cutting out.
Double checking.
My bad.
But yeah, because I can no longer hear Steven. I think that
you can't hear Steven anymore, but you just run that man over.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I'll keep going.
Your underdog.
Oh,
am I back now?
Steven's back. Yay, Steven's back. Woo.
I'm sorry. My internet keeps cutting out, guys. I'm sorry about that. But don't let me slow you down. Keep going, Shawar.
All good. You're all good. All right. Next, my dark horse. And I think that everyone else, this just slipped them by. McMaster University is my dark horse.
Yes. Sorry.
No one else, I think, has realized this yet. That team passed via RMUC midterm assessment. Not even ours, but the RMUC one. Which means that they have a lot of robots there that they're not even showing us.
Bro.
They've got a lot of knowledge. And they've been at every competition, essentially. I think that they're a team to look out for.
Sure, I think I played with them in 2019.
Yeah.
I think McMaster's been on the... I think when I was in China, I think I saw their robots. And that was 2019. The robots back then were all 100% 3D printed. There was only 3 of them. They were like us. We were there. We weren't going to win anything. They weren't going to win anything.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I think they're one of those teams that kind of fell off everyone's radar during the COVID era, the beginning of RMNA.
I think they'll be back. I think they've been cooking. I think they're coming back.
Here it is.
I think it's Simba's return.
Yes. Thank you so much.
University is my dark horse personally. I think this is something that it slipped people's minds a little bit. Because again, no one was really thinking about them. I think that they could definitely come through and make a top 4 placement, possibly even win. I think it'd be really interesting to see too, and it'd be really exciting. And then my underdog pick, I kind of already mentioned it. I think Nagoya is my underdog pick. They're not really an underdog necessarily, but I think in terms of team that has only showed up once so far to RMUL, and can take it all the way to number 1, that's my pinpoint right there, is Nagoya. I think this is my personal tier list. And I think this is solid. And I know that TAMU is in here. I think TAMU still gets top 8, but I don't think they're the top 4, and I wouldn't call them a dark horse or an underdog. And I think that's the craziest part about my tier list. TAMU isn't on it at all.
They're just not even mentioned.
I think the craziest part of the take is you said they still get top 8. My man didn't even put the respect on their name to say top 5 or top 6.
I don't know. Okay, if I had to
immediately said, dude, they'll be in the top half of
competitors.
competitors.
They'll be in the top half of the competitors. I think that's true. I think that
Wow.
another thing about
No,
Tamu
no,
is that
stick
I
with
know
it.
they're focusing on China.
Stick to it.
I know that they're sending some of like they're like I just know in general that they're focusing on China, etc. And I expect them to really like to do well there as well. And I just think that like
Could get lost in the
it's
sauce, man.
could get lost in the sauce.
Happens.
It's a lot
Yeah.
to
Possible.
spread your brain over. But yeah,
We've seen it.
I
I mean,
think-
hey, you look at. I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but UIUC last year, 2023, they were going to China, and they came to RMNA, and their robots they weren't ready. They were having some technical
Yeah.
difficulties, and
for
they
one
ended
v1
up.
was good though.
Yeah, they did. Hey, they did place second in 1v1, but in the 3v3, they didn't make it out of their group.
And if I could have one more underdog, please, because there's one more that I really want to shout out and highlight. Dude,
I'll get you one
Purdue.
more. One more.
Purdue, like, come on. Purdue has been doing consistently well. I think that in any year, like, their balancing last year was so good. I think that again, they're at that same caliber like CU in my mind, where like their innovation goes so fast that I'm expecting to see them at like a very like top tier level this year. And so not necessarily too much underdog, but Purdue is one that I also think like that's a team that you need to look out for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
I like it. I'm loving this tier list you are. I personally, my favorite part is that you included McMaster. And if anyone has been paying attention, I've been championing McMaster. Basically, what I was doing for Nuss last year, I'm doing for McMaster this year. And I'll go ahead and get into my tier list as well. But I love your tier
Yes,
list.
let's
I think
hear
you've
yours,
got
Steve.
some.
I'm excited.
You've got some spicy picks in there. Notably, the absence of Tamu. I'm sure that a couple of Tamu members, if they're watching, I don't know if they're in the chat, but they'll have something to say about that.
To be fair, Preston neglected Virginia Tech. I neglected TAMU. So we're clearly
There's
like
so many, man. Top
split-
four
we're
is
split in
going to
half.
be
No, top
spicy
four
as
is-
heck this year.
okay, top four is hard to guess. I agree. This is a spicy top four. Absolutely.
All right,
Yeah,
well,
I'm excited, dude. This year's gonna be so good.
it's gonna be so good. I'm gonna go ahead and do my tier list, and I'm gonna go bottom up because I can't think at the top right now. So I'm gonna go bottom up. But first, my underdog.
Sound good?
I don't have their logo, unfortunately, but I'm going to pick RHIT. And for the same reason that we've talked about them over the course of the the interviews and tonight, they've been cooking in the background. They've gone to the Midwest Conference. They've done really well there. They won the Midwest Conference last year, actually.
Yeah.
They were the best performer. So they've got the solid robots. They just haven't had that competition. And so I don't know if they're, gonna have that readiness that other teams who have been to competition, who have seen what happens, all the issues that come up. I think there's gonna be a little bit of a culture shock there that coming in, but I do think that they're gonna come in and surprise some people with how well they do, because I've seen some of their robots, some of their leaks that they put into the chats, and I think I like what I see. So I'm gonna have them as my underdog. If I ever get their logo, I'll throw it up there. But next, I'm moving to the dark horse, and Chouar, I'm the exact same. I gotta pick
McMaster, gotta
McMaster.
represent. You would think that we went to
McMaster, baby.
McMaster, but the fact that we both put McMaster at Dark Horse.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I have been loving what I've been seeing from McMaster. And I'm not going to reveal too much because next week is going to be the robot discussion video where we're going to discuss some leaks, some excellent robot reveals if we get some. But what I have seen, I really, really like. And I know people will, like to maybe say, okay, well, they had some quirky designs with the little spider standard. Let me just tell you,
cool.
y'all do not know, y'all do not understand the sauce, man. They are just so beyond us with the meta. You think bouncing standard is meta? No, it's spider standard is the meta. I'm thinking back to the anime where it's the spider hero just crawling and then with the vacuum. Yeah, McMaster is cooking so hard, and I'm really excited to see what they bring. All right, the top three. All right, obviously, I think Virginia Tech, no-brainer. For me, they have been consistent outside of 2022, notwithstanding. They have been so consistently good, and I think one of the most reliable teams at RMNA. Just year in and year out, it seems like...
Time out. They placed well last year, and they had a great strat last year, but I must say that most of the teams that lost to them, it's because they dropped the ball and didn't focus on strategy at all.
Yeah,
Like, they just
no,
let
I
the
agree.
hero
Hey,
go and
that's not
100
on
to 0
Virginia
the
Tech.
base.
You can't put that on VT. Robo Grinder does what Robo Grinder does.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing for VT. They were like, hey, all of these kids are just nerdy engineers. They didn't even know this is a game. They just wanted to build a robot. Like
They came to win.
found the weak point.
Yeah,
But like
I think
I don't know, calling it a no-brainer. I'm like, as soon as the teams are like, hey, maybe we shouldn't let their hero drive behind our base, then I don't think they're a no-brainer for top 3. I think they're
to
right
add
up
to
there.
this-
I think they're in that top 6. But
I think to add to this, something about VT's strat last year that we saw was the minute there was a working sentry on the field, it was impossible for them to get through.
You couldn't get through.
Yeah, and their hero strat kind of fell apart.
This
there.
year, I think at least the top 3 teams have working sentries.
I agree. Yeah.
Anyway, keep going. I just wanted to interrupt. You called my pick a no-brainer, so I had to defend myself and lack of brain here.
Okay.
Still
That's
a
fair.
good
That's
pick.
fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
But I still think they're good. Next one, I am still going to include Tamu. I do think that they will take a step back from last year's performance, just in terms of their quality and
Just want to point
preparedness.
out the 2 people who went to Tamu still putting in Tamu top 4. I think that's a little copium. Just want to point out a little bit.
Hey,
tiny bit of
It's
maybe-
not copium.
Maybe we've seen some leaks. You ever thought about that?
Oh, maybe
Maybe some insider
True,
knowledge.
true.
we got
Maybe they
going
know
on.
more than I do.
maybe the performance is looking pretty good.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
Shawar,
I'm
you want to
excited.
throw NYU up on your tier list, maybe?
I think NYU makes top 8. I don't know about top 4. I left
That's
the team in like the fall, so like it's not my responsibility anymore. So
I got you. Well, I mean, I think Tamu is still going to be good. I think they're going to, place well. I think they're going to make top 8. Where in their top 8, I honestly don't know. I'll just be frank about that one. I don't know if so don't come at me for not saying that they're, top 4, top 5. I do think they're going to make top 8. I think they do have the potential to be top 3. Absolutely. From what I've seen in, from years past, just how they managed to overcome a lot of their challenges. I mean, last year I didn't even think that they were gonna make their first bracket round. I thought they were gonna lose to CU, honestly, is what I thought. But I do think that they are going to have a little bit of step back, because I agree, Preston. They're preparing for China. That's a big task. I mean, as one of the old members who went to China, that's just so much time and effort to prepare and work on the robots, because you gotta think it's you're working on 3-4 additional robots now, in addition to the ones that you're trying to bring for RMNA. So I think maybe they might have spread themselves a little bit thin, but I'm open to being corrected. And so as a Tamu alum, I'm hoping that they surprise me and show me some really good stuff. But they're going to be in my top next 3. Here's going to be my controversial take, and I know y'all are going to flame me for this. UW. I'm putting UW in the next 3.
Okay, what are you doing? What are you cooking? Are you going to see
I'm
Utah?
not even-
You don't even talk about the UW pick, because
Yeah,
really
no.
the only thing that matters about the UW pick is who you picked to beat them. So just
Yeah.
okay, cool. You
I
think
didn't
they're
see
in
the
top?
champion part.
Yeah. What is it? CU? Is it?
It's CU.
Wait. All right.
It
all
is
right,
CU.
all right.
Interesting.
Let me justify myself. Let
I
me
don't hate this actually. I'm down for this personally.
Okay,
It's
let me
possible.
defend myself before you crucify me. Let me defend myself. Okay,
Ah.
so
Mhm.
UW, they've been great. They have been the standard of RMNA. They've been that rock. They're always solid. But last year, I saw some very concerning things out of UW. And I know that
Congrats to
I have them
Charlotte,
here in my tier list in my dark horse. But if you'll remember, UW almost lost a group stage match to McMaster. Last year, this happened. In fact, McMaster was winning at 3 minutes. They were winning. They had the win condition advantage. It was slight. And they didn't end up losing 2-0 or 0-2 to UW. But the fact that McMaster had an advantage over UW, and UW did not have their hero working until the final day. Their sentry wasn't really working until the final day. If you remember, their sentry couldn't hit anything. We were talking about it, a lot of the casters and some of the audience. It was like, hey, this UW sentry that last year was so dominant could not kill a robot. And there were several teams that went face up against their sentry, and it just tried to shoot them and couldn't do any damage. And so I still think UW is one of the teams to beat. Absolutely. I would not be shocked at all if they 4P. But
I love how we had like the years of, like, between our tier lists. There's like Preston was like, I think UW's still like the top. I said I think they're starting to fall, but next year is like the year that we really matter. And Steve was like, nah, this year.
Oh,
Bring it
I
up
mean,
again.
down with
I
the
do
king.
recall how many times. I mean, like even chat every once in a while last year would get a little fed up with how much crap I was giving UW during the games. Like
Yeah.
I was severely disappointed with their performance in a lot of matches last year. And I do think that the level 3 standard dominance being removed will hurt them most of all. I think their CV on their standard it was what really pushed them ahead. I mean, although A&M beat them in 1v1 standard confrontation. So, I mean, it's hard to...
Here's the other thing.
I'm
UW
so
didn't get
excited
second.
for this year.
That was UIUC got second. UW got third in the
Yeah.
1v1.
Yeah.
And they almost lost to VT in that too. I believe that was a 4-round match. So it was close, right? And so I know this is going to be the really controversial take, CU winning it all. And let
I'm
me
here for it personally.
let me
I think
justify
that's
this.
That's an amazing idea.
Cinderella story, failing the assessment to winning the competition.
I know it's going to be the greatest comeback story you've ever seen, Preston. It's going to be this greatest
Don't
comeback
call
story.
it a
But
comeback.
I have seen year after year CU have these incredible robot designs. In my opinion, I think they have some of the best designs out of all of RMNA. Now, I do think that they always have issues with reliability, and in previous years, it's been software, particularly with like, their ability to control through their leveling system. But you have to remember, CU, for those of you who don't know, CU doesn't use Taproot. They were creating their whole own software infrastructure all by themselves. They decided to not go the Taproot way, which other teams like, Tamu, VT, a lot of RMNA teams use. They decided to build their own ecosystem. That's hard. And so I don't fault them for those early years of those software struggles, right? But if you look just at their hardware, I would put them up against anyone in terms of just their hardware comparatively against anyone in RMNA and say they have the better hardware. And so now that this is year 4, I'm betting that CU's worked out those kinks. I think they've worked out all the bugs, and we saw it last year. I mean, in that first match, that they had probably one of the most explosive sentries that we had seen at RMNA. Just came right out the gate, went over to the enemy's resupply zone, and just got a spawn kill, 2 spawn kills, standard and hero. It couldn't get back, but like I'm saying, those are some minor bugs that they had to work out. And I talked to them that, was like, why didn't y'all run that again? And they told me, it was like, hey, we didn't want the sentry to die right away because obviously it resulted in their loss. So, they wanted to play it safe. But if they've managed to fix those bugs, they have some of the best hardware. I think that they have some strategies that other teams are scared to do. And I think that they have the drive to get that championship spot. I mean, they've heard the hype surrounding them. They've heard like every year. It's almost like A&M football, Preston. It's like every year they're hyped up and then they don't meet the expectations.
Yeah.
But one year,
A&M football.
I know, but one of these years they have got to meet it, right? I mean, you just can't not meet expectations for that long. At some point, you have to make that jump. And I'm saying that this is the year, 2024, Boulder, Colorado. I think CU does it.
That would be cool. I hope it works out well for them.
I think the most important part about these tier lists so far has been that none of us have said the same top 4. And that just proves to me that this is going to be like the year to like watch and see just how crazy all these teams are going to be, man. I'm excited.
Well, that's so true.
Oh, yeah.
So true.
Big hype. All right, boys. We've gone long. Hour 15.
Long. Yeah. Thank you both so much for your input and for coming on tonight, sharing your thoughts. Thank you, Shawar, for the wonderful explanation of the new format changes, and Preston for your excellent commentary on, some of the strategy that teams are going to implement. And thank you both for your spicy tier list. I know everyone probably that watches this VOD is going to come after us now. And
did you save the images for those tier lists just out of curiosity?
I did. They're here.
You should send them all. You should send them all into RMNA, like the server, and just be like, guess the tier. Like don't come at us. That's what we're thinking. It'd be funny. It'd be good engagement. I'm just saying for the engagement. The engagement's what matters here.
Doing it for the plot. Here we go.
The plot. Just don't throw tomatoes
Goodness
at us at competition for our spicy takes.
Please don't throw tomatoes at us.
Well,
I
thank
cannot
y'all
go
so
home
much for coming on
staining
again.
tomatoes.
I won't hold y'all any longer. I know that we have gone along. Thank you guys for watching. Next week, like I said, we are going to be talking about some robot reveals, discussing some leaks potentially. If I get some footage, some media from some of the team leads, please, team leads, if you are doing robot reveals, send them
Your
to
robot
me.
reveals in the chat, like
Yes,
next week, please.
Please, 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 please. Otherwise, I will go and hunt down all your team leads and berate them until they give me some footage. So,
Yeah.
thank y'all so much. We'll look forward to seeing y'all next week.
Bye.
And good night. And Preston, Shuar, y'all take care.
Good night, guys.